Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and in this episode, we sit down with Jonathan Levitt. Jonathan has an incredible career in the entertainment industry, from acting to TV hosting to magic, but you might not know him from his show. You might know him from his incredible Stranger app and entire Stranger system, plus some new projects that he has that you're going to really, really love. So this was an incredible episode all about all the things he's been up to, including his Vegas show, creating magic, being on TV, hosting, producing, as well as his magic apps just for magicians. You're going to love this episode as much as I did. Here it is, a wonderful episode with the one and only Jonathan Levitt. Hello, my friends, and welcome to a brand new episode of Discourse in Magic. My name is Jonah Babbins, and we are here with Jonathan Levitt. Jonathan, how are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
I'm excited to have you. To be honest, I asked you to be on the show before I realized that I was going to see you at Magi Fest, and I got a chance to see your show and chat a bit, so we have some extra things to talk about. Why don't we start at the very beginning? How did you get started in magic? How did magic find you?
Oh, wow. My father was a magician. He, I would say a semi-pro, did magic as a young man and throughout New York and Canada. And I, when I was 8 years old, I found some of his magic props in the bottom drawer of a dresser in our basement in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I grew up. I moved there when I was 8 years old, and the rest is history. I was very lucky to be in St. Louis, where I was surrounded by amazing magicians and my peers at that time. And I was there at the time of Chris Kenner and Chris Korn and Andrew Goldenhirsch, and we're all contemporaries, and that was really a great time to be there. And Harry Monty was a great mentor for me, and I met many magicians out of St. Louis, and it was a wonderful time to be growing up there, and I learned a lot, and that's it. Yeah.
Amazing start with amazing people to be surrounded by. So that's fantastic. Talk to me about did you know you were going to be serious about this? Did you go to school for something else? When did this become real for you?
You know what? This is interesting. So I've been, I started when I was 8. So what is that? 45 years ago. Started doing it. Started street performing when I was 12. Been doing it my whole life. Went to college. Started producing shows. Always doing magic in some way. Then I moved out of college. Went to Colorado, Denver, for about 4 years to a major software company. During that time, I was still doing magic, but it was a little bit on the back burner. But I still found myself in the papers, still found myself doing busker festivals and performing here or there. But it was still sort of on the back burner. But I made some great friends there as well. Great friends, Sean Popp and Brad Montgomery and Brian Dino, and a longer list than that. But made great friends in Steve Spangler and great friends in Colorado. But wasn't really doing a lot of magic, just sort of on the periphery. And then I made the decision to move to Los Angeles to pursue my acting career. And when I did that, I got thrown into magic a lot more than ever before. And I have a history in magic back then because I moved to Los Angeles. And so magic became a much more important part of my life, but it probably wasn't, and magic found its way into all aspects of my life, whether it's in front of the camera, behind the camera, live entertainment, all of it, consulting. But I would say it was probably, 10-ish, maybe a little more years ago, that I finally was able to bring myself to say, when people say, "What do you do?" for me to say, "I'm a magician." Mm-hmm. Because I was always doing, and I still do, so many different things, wear many hats, and I talk about those things, but still would have a hard time saying the words, "I'm a magician."
So around what age or period in your life did you become a magician? Happy to say that that's what you do.
Well, I guess about 10 or 15 years ago is when I really started to say that,
Wow.
And so, yeah, that's a big deal for me.
Of course it is, and it's a scary thing to tell people. Someone asks what you do, a lot of the times the reason why magicians do lots of other things is because I was afraid to do this kind of thing full time and to potentially say goodbye to some of the other things. I want to go through some of those bits. So acting, I was digging through your website and I found that you acted in one of my favorite shows of all time that lasted one season, Flash Forward. Love that.
Flash Forward.
Love that
Yeah.
show. Talk to me about acting. How did you get into it? And was it something that you liked? Like, I mean, I know that the real difference in terms of getting work in acting and magic is like night and day. One is lining up with a bunch of people that look just like you, hoping that you get a job. And then magic is kind of the exact opposite side. Oftentimes you're not in competition with 25 other people that are just like you. People want you. So talk to me about like, how was acting for you?
Well, I mean, acting was good. I mean, I moved out to Los Angeles to pursue an acting career. And I feel very fortunate in the career that I had and have. And that also moved into hosting, television hosting. So have done quite a bit of television hosting in my career as well. So they're all, being in front of the camera, sort of all related in different way, in similar and in different ways. But as far as getting gigs, yeah, it's a very different beast, and you have to be very committed to it. I mean, what can I tell you? I mean, it is. I don't get to just say, oh, you know what? I think I want to be on that show. I think I'll go audition for that show. You don't get to do that. Even though people, your family and friends that don't really know the business will say, you know what? You would be great on this show, X show. You should do that one.
You're like, oh, thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I'll go do that one. But, it is about having representation. It's about having relationships and building relationships. I was very fortunate in my career to build some wonderful relationships, and those relationships, mostly my acting jobs, not all of them, but many of them came from relationships more than going in and sitting in a room and auditioning, even though I either had to go through audition process still, but to get through to that, to be able to get in the door to do that, it's not always easy. So I don't know what to tell you other than it is a grind. And, I tend to not be a great client for agents because I'm doing so much and traveling and wearing many other hats, which does not necessarily make you a great client for an agent. An agent is generally waiting for you wanting you to just be there and be available at all times. And then we also have the business itself. The business itself up in LA is a little upside down at the moment and has gone through its issues recently with strikes and what have you. So it's a very difficult business to be a part of right now, but for everybody that's in the business. So, but it is fun. I mean, I certainly enjoyed the work. The work is the fun part. Work is the fun part. Going on set and doing something is the fun part. On Flash Forward, I was fortunate to be the coroner on that show, and that was great fun. So I got to be around dead bodies.
Talk to me about the hosting on some TV. Like, you certainly learn a lot about some skills that really translate into performing magic, both for a camera and also just in general managing different people. What are some of the things that you learned and took from the hosting opportunities?
Well, hosting is a skill. There's no doubt. There's a skill to that. It's not easy for many people to do, but you get to learn how to. Well, it's interesting. So as a host, very often I would interview people for the shows I was on. It was Discovery Channel, Science Channel, Biography Channel, etc. I did do one magic-based show called Celebricadabra, which was on VH1. Yeah, but it was I'm interviewing people, interviewing interesting people, and for me, I'm a conduit as a host. I'm a conduit for the audience, kind of the everyman conduit for the audience, and so you get to learn. There's the technical side of it, learning to deliver lines, learning to make hit your mark, learning to walk and talk, learning to interview. These are, it's all technical stuff. But what was interesting, I would always do not often do a magic trick for the people I'm interviewing before going on camera, because my job is to put them at ease. The more they're at ease, the more they're going to open up to me. So I was always able to do that, and I think that was something that I had that was beneficial. I would sit with somebody before an interview do a magic trick for them, and it would open them up and give them, make them more comfortable in front of me, in front of the camera talking to me. So, but it was fun. I mean, I got to learn quite a bit. And, you take all of these skills to the stage with you as a magician. People ask me what they should do as a magician as they're learning. And I always say, take an improv class, take an acting class. Mm-hmm. These are skills that are incredibly beneficial to someone on stage as a magician. And in my lectures, my magic lectures, I often talk about acting and talk about how to handle yourself on stage and how to be in the moment and how to deal with gifts that are given to you on stage rather than ignoring them. And that all comes from the acting background and the improv background. So that's a very valuable thing to do. So, and having the experience in front of a camera only helps you. And then if you're going to do a TV show, which I've done quite a bit of magic on TV, or consulting, I've done that as well in front of a camera, then that past experience simply helps that process. When I've worked with actors, consulting for actors in TV and film, I'm able to talk to them as a magician. I'm able to talk to them as an actor and help them in that regard so that they can come to the role as an actor and yet still do magic. And how do magicians behave? How do they think? How do they act? How do they move? How do their hands move? All of that is important knowledge to be giving to an actor as well. That's going to be playing the part of a magician.
Let's talk about that. I know you've consulted for magic for a bunch of films. I think Burt Wonderstone was one of them. What did that look like? And in general, if there's other ones that I don't know about, what does consulting magic on a film like that look like?
Well, for Burt Wonderstone, I was on the film for about 4 months, and there's the pre-production part. Jim Steinmeier took part to create the magic for the script as it was, and then I came on to be on set. And so what that meant was working with the actors, in this case, mostly working with Jim Carrey, and actually not so much, but working with Steve Carell, Steve Buscemi, and Olivia Wilde primarily. I'm also Steve Carell's hands in the film for the most part.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
When you see him doing magic, usually it's me. And then, so coming in, working with the actors before we start shooting and getting them comfortable with the magic that's been built for the movie. And then being on set while it's happening and working with the director and watching the camera and watching, trying to watch for flashing and watch for proper angles, but then also watch for execution of the magic and working with the actors on set doing that as well. So and then at times coming up with magic on the spot because something has come up, and you have to make adjustments. So you're sort of always on your toes.
Aside from the hands, is there anything specific in that film which is like a moment or something that was really memorable to you that you look fondly on when you see the movie or when people talk about it?
Boy, that was a great experience. It was a really great experience. Working, all of them, Steve Carell and Steve Buscemi, the nicest people on the planet. They were very interesting to work with. Olivia was great. I mean, it was. Can I tell you specific example? You know what? I can't tell you specifics right now. It's a long time ago. But what was interesting is when I was doing Steve Carell's hands, we would sometimes do it as digital inserts, sometimes do it as physical inserts. Sometimes you'd see there's actually one great scene where and Alan Arkin too. Oh my gosh, Alan Arkin. But there's one great scene where you see. Actually, I will tell you a good story. But there's one scene where you see Steve's hands in Steve in the shot, and I'm out of frame, sticking my hands up into the frame as his hands. It's very funny. If you go back and watch the movie, it's where he and Alan Arkin are in the old folks' home and working with the billiard balls. Here's a story that I loved. It has nothing to do with my doing magic, but Alan Arkin is on stage, and he's playing the younger version of himself on stage doing a kind of an infomercial on TV. And we're in a theater, and I'm in the audience behind the director, and we're watching this play out. And Alan Arkin does this thing where he's shaking his hand on stage, and then bam, an egg appears in his hand, and that's going to be happening in post. They put the egg in post. They put the egg in his hand. And he's shaking his hand, and then bam, that egg appears. And I said to him, to Alan Arkin, I said, a magician would never act like that, would never move their hands like that. And he said to me, yes, but my way is funnier. And then you watch the film and you realize his way is funnier. So much better. Lesson learned. Thank you. I do not give notes to Alan Arkin. It was great.
That is awesome. So, right now, roughly in the timeline, like you always did some magic. You went and did some acting in LA. I assume in and around then is when the consulting started to happen. What sort of magic were you doing when you were doing gigs? Were you doing corporate stuff? Were you doing colleges? What was the bulk of the magic that you were doing?
Oh, just private parties in around town, some travel, some corporate, working the Magic Castle, kind of all of it, really. Kind of all of that. Yeah. I mean, I just sort of across the board, just a journeyman magician, like anybody else.
A little bit of everything. Right now, you have a show that happens at the Venetian in Las Vegas. I want to hear a bit about the show, but also I'm curious about how it came to be. A lot of magicians dream of having that sort of thing. How did, like you were joking earlier about people telling the actor, oh, you should be in this. How many magicians have heard, oh, you should go to Vegas. Oh, you should be in Vegas. Right. First of all, how did that come to be? And then tell me a bit more about the show itself.
Sure. Well, Benjamin Schrader, my partner on this, he had a show in Encino, California, a magic bar show that he created. And he was bringing magicians in to work in that venue. And it was very intimate, 16 people at a time, very intimate setting. And then when COVID hit, that sort of shut down. And two other producing partners that are now on our team came on to say, we want to do something with that show. And then Ben and I started working together on this as well. So now our core team is together producing the show. And then we were able to, we did a 2-week run in New York City where we built a theater out and did the show there, and did in a couple of other places, sort of as proof of concepts. And then the opportunity for Vegas arose, and we were able to jump on that. So we're at the Venetian now, and it's going great. I, as a co-creator of the show with Benjamin Schrader, we mounted the show for a couple of months. And then now we have other people in the show, and we're back here in LA. But the show's running and going well. I'll actually go out there in April for a weekend, I think April 10th through the 13th, to fill in for a weekend, which will be fun. But the show's going great. Marketing's kicking off, or not kicking off, but continuing on. And response has been very positive to it. And it's a good fun. And the show itself is intimate show of two people behind a bar, the magician and a host bartender. It's their interaction. And it's a theatrical presentation of magic. It's not just any magician getting behind a bar and doing 70 minutes of their material. It's really a structured show with the two people behind the bar and their banter and their relationship. And it's very intimate. We put about 8 or 10 people at the bar itself, and then everybody else is raked behind them.
How many people total?
Cap out the seating at about 45. And it's a great intimate experience. It's really, really fun.
And so, the fact that it's a theatrical show means that you don't just fill in any magician. Do you have a roster? How does it work? Do you have 2 people that go in and out? Is it one person for now until they get replaced? How does that work?
We have our set cast, right? Our 2 people that are there, but with other people that we're keeping an eye on, but if we need to fill in or, do anything down the road. But right now we're very happy with our current cast. John Accardo is playing the part of the magician, and playing the part because he is a magician and a great one. And then Zachary Petit is doing our host bartender role, and he's amazing as well. So the 2 of them have incredible chemistry. It's a great show. If anybody's interested in seeing the show, again, it is at the Venetian. It's called Leger de Main, LEGERDEMAIN. And you can find it out at, if you look up 1923 Live, I believe it's 1923lv.com. That's the venue that we're in at the Venetian.
And, from what I understand, like Vegas is a tough place to produce a show because there's so much competition and so many big names to go see when you're there. What have you learned about trying to produce a show where it's going well, people are coming to it in a city like that?
It is not easy. That's for sure. I forget the number, but the number of available seats throughout Vegas on any night is beyond imagination.
Yeah.
So you are competing with all of that. You're competing with all of that. I think we're lucky to be in an intimate setting like this. I think some of the shift is happening where people are more interested or interested in these smaller, more intimate shows versus the larger scale shows. And it's a little bit easier to manage. But there's a lot to it. There's a lot, the marketing, we just recently ended up on taxi cabs, now we're on the tops of taxi cabs and those kind of things. So there's a lot to it. We're very fortunate to have some great marketing teams and great partners out in Vegas, our other producing partners. We're with Spy Entertainment out there as well. So cool. They're terrific. And so we're very, very lucky to be partnered with the folks that are there that are entrenched in Vegas, that know Vegas and know how to do this. So we have a good team.
And how often does the show run?
It's Thursday through Sunday with possibility of and Wednesday as well.
Cool. And one show a night?
One show a night, except for when there are two shows a night on the weekends.
Cool. Got it. Yeah. That's really exciting. Congratulations. How long have you been there?
Thanks. We opened up last summer, and it's going great. And we continue to keep going strong. And, the show is strong. The magic's strong. It's very funny and engaging, and the response has been incredibly positive.
And is the magician doing the magic that you designed, or are they doing parts of their act?
Both. So the magic that they're bringing to the table that is not something that I've designed, it has been vetted and directed by us to fit the mold of the show and the style and the tone of the show. But we do, give them some flexibility to be able to bring in their own style to that. So we're not handcuffing them, but it is curated for sure.
Cool. Well, maybe the people around Vegas know you for that show, but the magicians know you for some other project. And I'd love to hear a little more about them, starting with sort of, I think, the most popular, which is The Stranger. It's an amazing trick, and also sort of a community of people that are helping each other. Can you give some background on, like, first of all, what is it for anyone who doesn't know? And then, like, how did this come to be? Because it's a really unique, it's such a mixture of a magic trick, but also a, software, but also, people helping each other. So how did this trick, The Stranger, come to be? What is it, and how does it all work?
Sure. And our audience are magicians only.
This is just magicians. If a layperson's listening to this, they're out of their mind.
Okay. Well, The Stranger phone call is, for me, it's one of the greatest tricks I've ever done in my career. I generally finish every show with it as my finale. I get 12 to 14 minutes out of it on stage, and the reactions are incredible. And what it is it's basically the wizard phone call on steroids, right? But built in such a way as a phone app to give you, to be thinking about, I think about you as a performer, right? So as a person that's using this as a performer, because I'm a performer. So all the little nuances that you need to make it believable. So it's very powerful, this thing. And, you can reveal a playing card, if you want to do that, but there's other ways to reveal other information as well. But it started, my background's in software and software development. And so software should be used to make something more efficient, to make your process more efficient, and in magic, to enhance the impact of an effect. And I started, we were doing this, to give a quick history lesson on this.
Please.
But we started this, it goes back. Romanos was doing a way of using your phone to make a phone call seemingly to somebody that's a stranger that you didn't know, but but was really calling your friend, right?
Yeah.
But then you had to communicate the information of the card or force a card if you were doing a playing card reveal, that kind of thing. But it was fun, and a group of us were, and Peter Turner had I think Peter came around, it was doing it before Romanos actually showed Romanos, so I'm pretty sure that's the right history of this. But, and I talk extensively about this history in my Vanishing Ink masterclass that came out this last year as well. And so it was, it was fun, and a group of us were doing it. Robert Ramirez had kind of brought it to a small group of people because he had learned it from someone who learned it from Romanos, and so we were all kind of doing it. And I thought, you know what, this really should be an app. It's much more. We should be able to streamline this process. So I decided I was going to start to work on creating an app for it. At which point, when I was doing that, Mark Kirstein, who has a great app called Diverter, which does a similar type of thing where it allows you to call somebody else, reached out to me and said, hey, I think I'm doing this kind of thing already, which I had not heard of Diverter at the time, but we talked about it, agreed that it was independent thinking, and both moved forward. And so I started to really work on this app in that way. So, and I did, and I just started to become more and more. And what came out of it, the technology is solid and really well built. And there's so much in the app itself that are convincers that just make it believable. But in addition to that, what came out of it was a community. And this is what I'm perhaps most proud of, is this worldwide community of strangers that have become friends, that are all helping each other. So we have WhatsApp groups in different parts of the world where you go in and you say, hey, I need some help. And people start responding, I can help you, I can help you. It's tremendous. So we actually have a community of people around the world helping each other. And I don't know
I need some help is saying like, hey, I need someone to pretend to be a random person at 11:30 tonight when I'm doing my show.
Exactly. And what you'll find is many magicians say that they have more fun being the stranger than the magician. So, and then we get together for stranger photos at conventions, and it's really become a community. And I'm very proud of that. And it's a very vibrant group of people.
Not to like get too deep into it, but just to like comprehend what it is, which is that there is a way to cleverly encode the information to the person who you are calling so that they know what it is to reveal, and that ostensibly you don't have to force the thing. You just have to pass the information off to them.
Yeah, free selection. The app does all the work for you. And so by the time you make the phone call, you're just having a conversation. And at that point, it becomes an acting exercise.
Wow.
And the believability factor is there. And so it's really, it's the most fun you'll ever have doing magic. It's like a drug, and there are magicians that have held off from doing it. And then when they finally do it once, they go, oh my God, I now see what you're talking about, and it's so much fun. Basically, for me, a lot of times I'm doing my show just so I can get to this. I'll do all the other stuff just so I can get to this. And it's the most memorable thing anybody has. Most magicians, if you ask a lay audience after a show, what did you just see? For the most part, they'll forget what they saw. They won't be able to remember what they actually saw in the show. This trick, I've had people a year later come up to me, and before they even say hello, they go, that phone trick. It's the thing they remember. And this is the trick that closes deals. I've been with people that, they like, I'm doing business deals and I do this and you're done. That's all you need. So it's just the most fun.
Awesome. Yeah. What an awesome thing you created. I've seen so many magicians doing it and using it and loving it and loving, being able to work together and have fun with each other. So
I've made great friends from this. People, I am proud to say that I have friends all over the world that have come out of this project. And I'm very proud of that and humbled by it as well.
And you have another project, which was, I guess, once called The Stranger System, but is now evolved into something greater called Nexus. What is that?
This blows the doors wide open. This allows you to take data in and send it out, right? It becomes your digital hub for other apps and devices, for other ways to input, for other information. So it is your hub to create routines. It's your place to create routines and run your show. So, for instance, we take data in a variety of ways, right? We take it in through input on your phone itself. We take it in through other apps that send information to Nexus. We have one of the most advanced listening technologies in Magic today. So it will listen through your phone or your watch. It will listen for zip codes and lotto numbers and serial numbers on bills and phrases and words and do calculations for you. And all of this can be done through your voice. So in a very effortless way, without ever touching your phone, you can take information in and then send it out somewhere. You can send it through an AI engine within the app as well. So all of this is possible to create unique routines that you may not have been able to create before, and then use those through what we call pathways in Nexus that allow you to construct routines and be able to select them easily. You can select them through the built-in remote control that comes with Nexus. You can get them. You can execute those pathways by selecting them or auto-advancing through them, so you can automate your show. So, for instance, the show that I just did at Magi Fest, you mentioned we were just at Magi Fest. I used Nexus in my show on stage during the hour 5 different times. Wow. And that allowed me to create wholly new routines that were seamless, effortless, without seemingly using any technology from the audience's perspective. And then ending with a phone call through the Stranger phone call app, but not doing a playing card reveal, but in this case, using a Lumen impression pad to be able to send a drawing over to my Stranger and have a drawing duplication on stage through a video FaceTime call where the drawing that the Stranger just drew on that call matched the drawing that was made by the person on stage. And the result is just stupendous. So Nexus is your hub to create routines you've never been able to create before, and to be completely creative and apply what I like to consider or think of as nonlinear creativity, creating routines that are not A to B and are more complex and unique and interesting.
I know that sort of the whole point of it is to be creative, but can you give us a couple of examples of things that one might do, or that, like, out of the box, without ordering a bunch of impression pads or whatever, that you could do?
Sure. That's a good question. The people have asked, well, what can I do if I don't have the Glyphs printer, if I don't have Hydra to go to Instagram, if I don't have a Lumen impression pad, if I don't have a Mindbuster impression pad, if I don't have some of these other apps and devices, what can I do if I don't have products from Ben K. Smith? The answer is that there's things you could do built in for inputting, and then instead of outputting, and again, if you have the Stranger phone call, you can always go to a phone call. But if you don't have that, what can you do just with Nexus? And the answer is you become the output. So information that comes in can then be transferred to your knowledge. So let's say Pi Revelations, is a good example of that. Yep. from David Penn. I can take a number in, whether it's through listening mode or through inputting on my phone. And instead of sending it anywhere for the Pi Revelation, I can send it to my own peak on my own phone, which is a giant peak screen. And now I can have that information. I can go through the AI engine so that I did this on stage, actually at Magi Fest, right? Where I asked somebody, I just talked to the audience and said, give me a birthday. They tell me birthday. Now we have a birthday mode in our listening module that listens specifically to the conversation and extracts the birthday. And so we take that birthday. I took it through my AI engine to find a celebrity that was born on that birthday. And in this case, I sent it off to Instagram via Hydra, which is an amazing app from Shamir Salim, and put it in my bio that said, and this is a nonlinear approach to this. You say a birthday, and you go to my bio on Instagram, and instantly it says, I thought you would say Michael Jordan. And when somebody looks up Michael Jordan's birthday, there it is. And I've done nothing on stage. I simply
that wasn't someone off stage inputting it. That was it listening and knowing.
That was listening. Oh, that's right. You saw the show. Yeah. So what was happening was, at that moment, the person in the audience said the birthday. My watch heard the birthday and then immediately sent it off to Hydra through the AI engine in Nexus, and converted that to a celebrity, sent that to Hydra and put it on Instagram. I had them search their phone in the audience on Instagram. It said it. and that was it. And I didn't have to do a thing.
Wow.
It just happened automatically. But if I didn't want to go to Instagram, I could go to my peak on my screen and know immediately who that celebrity was. So you become the output. You become this, you have all of this information at your fingertips, and you're able to recount that information. You give me a zip code and I'll tell you what city it's in. And that information goes through the AI engine and we're done. I also use it for book tests. You notice there I did 2 book tests in that show. One with a book that's published by my wife, and I have a publishing company. And I did it again using Particle System from Joshua Jay, since he lectured on it that day. And I was able to have someone in the audience open up those books, go to any page, tell me the page number they're on, and I was able to reveal the word on that page. And that's all built into Nexus. Anybody can create those cribs, as we call them, through AutoCrib, for any book off their shelf easily. So you can create a book test for
you
any
don't
book
have to find like an ebook version of it. You just submitted the book itself.
No, I just created a crib. It takes me about 5 to 10 minutes to create a crib for any book off my bookshelf. And at that point, it's in Nexus. I can use it at any time. And all I have to do is say the page number, and I know the word.
Wow. Well, this is a beast of a project. This is very exciting. Yeah. This is coming out at Blackpool.
Yes. Cool. It gets released at Blackpool, officially released at Blackpool, and it will change the way that you create routines.
And it comes with a remote. What's the remote for?
The remote will allow you to input information in without touching your phone or relying on another app or device. It also will allow you to select and execute pathways. So let's say I've got my top 10 pathways that I like to, routines that I like to perform, in zip code to city, to Instagram, or to peak, or book test for this one book, and I want to know the word. Any of these routines, and I can simply, on my remote, select the routine number and go. And then based on what that pathway needs for input, whether it's number or playing card or words or what have you, the remote will change to that input profile automatically. So It's just your way of controlling your show and executing pathways. I was this was great. I was at the car dealership yesterday, and I was talking with the advisor there to take in my car, and I needed a loaner. And he said, well, we'll have to see if any are available, what have you. So we sat down, and he was talking about the weather. And I said, yeah, I just came from Ohio. It's freezing there. And he said, what are you doing in Ohio? And I told him I'm a magician. I was performing at a magic convention. And then he said, well, can you do anything for me? Well, I really didn't have anything on me. But I went to my everyday carry, my EDC, which was, hey, tell me a birthday. Check your Instagram. And there was the celebrity. We were done. That was it. That's all that it took place. I said, well, just give me a birthday. And open up your phone, go to Instagram. And
wow, that was like, no, you're not using your hands at all. It's just.
No, it's like nothing. It's a nothing. You're done. You could either input that birthday on the remote, or in this case, you could use the wrist to listen on the watch or listen on the phone. Any of those are possible, but none of them have the appearance of using any technology or doing anything. And he simply goes to his Instagram and it's done. And there's kind of nothing better. It was the fastest way to go.
I mean, it's like a magic trick without any of the sleights or, it just happens.
It just happens. And that's the thing with Nexus. The miracles just happen over and over again. And it's just so easy.
Love it. Well, congrats on the project. Very excited for its release. As we are nearing the end of the podcast, there's a bunch of questions that we ask each person. The first is the endless chain. So in order to keep the podcast going on for eternity, each guest is asked to recommend another guest that would be perfect for this kind of thing, with the exceptions being A, I cannot have had interviewed them already, which is really difficult, and B, that you have to be able to put us in contact. You can't just name the craziest name you can think of. So who is a person who you think would be a really good fit for this kind of conversation?
Wow. Okay, Christopher Hart.
That's great.
He'd be a great interview for you.
Good. That's really fantastic. Thank you for that. The next one is about modern magic. Like, what's one thing you like about the world of magic right now and one thing you don't like?
One thing I like is the accessibility of magic to a wider range, a wider audience. One thing I don't like is the accessibility of magic to a wider audience, where I'm more on the fence. I'm more on the side of loving it, but also recognizing that has opened up avenues for exposure. It's also opened up the need for magicians to go back to their roots. Right now, there's less reading in magic. There's less understanding of performance and how to present magic and that kind of thinking. But the trade-off is that more people are able to access magic, and more people are able to access magic and be exposed to a wider range of magic. And we're also able to get to a more diverse grouping of magicians. We're able to see more women in magic, more girls in magic, which is fantastic. And Leah Orleans is actually putting on a conference called Mystify. She's someone else you should interview, is Leah Orleans, if you haven't already, who's doing a wonderful job with a great team to present a new convention that's focused on women in magic. It's great. So these are all the positives. It's really wonderful.
Love it. And how interesting that the best part of magic right now is also the most challenging too. Sure. And I can certainly resonate with that. The last question is sort of about what we just talked about overall. People are going to be listening to this episode, and there was a lot of information and advice and things for people to learn. What do you think is the most important takeaway from this conversation? Like, what do you hope that people take home with them?
Be creative, try new things, nonlinear creativity, try to create routines that are interesting for an audience and surprising for an audience. I hope they take that away from it. Try and dare to try new things. Don't be afraid. Take leaps and chances and perform as much as you can.
I love it. Those are fantastic tips. Jonathan, where can people find you, and where can people find things like The Stranger and Nexus and any of your projects?
You know what? You can find out about me at jonathanlevitt.com, JONATHANLEVIT.com. You can also find my store site for some more information on this kind of stuff at twistingtheaces.com, twistingtheaces.com. But other than that, you can find me online. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, the typical handles. But I'm around.
Awesome. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for doing this. Thanks for the great time at Magi Fest and for being here and giving us a great interview. So appreciate the time. Thank you so much. And of course, big thank you to everybody at home to listen and tuning in. Appreciate it. And we'll see you all next Thursday. Ciao, friends.
Thanks.
Well, there you have it. I hope you liked the episode, and I hope, of course, that you learned something. Make sure to follow Jonathan on socials, and if you liked the episode, if something in here resonated with you, then tell a friend about the podcast. Podcasts are kind of clunky. They're hard to grow. They don't, come up on YouTube or anything like that. So if you think someone needs to know about the Discourse in Magic podcast, then please spread the word. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next Thursday. Ciao.